Let's get the details from Daljeet Dhaliwal in our Washington, D.C. broadcast center. Daljeet.
Thanks very much, Doreen. Well, the resolution was put forward by Palestinian leaders, and despite receiving the backing of 14 out of 15 members, it was defeated because the United States used its veto. Instead, Washington has offered to support a weaker, non-binding presidential statement that effectively rejects the legitimacy of Israel settlements. Well, earlier I spoke to Susan Rice, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and I asked her why, when nearly 140 countries and all of the other members of the Security Council had voted in favor of the resolution, why did the United States try to stop it from being voted on and then veto it?
Well, the United States' view is that our goal is and must remain the soonest possible establishment of an independent Palestinian state. And we looked at the resolution in the light of whether it would advance that goal or harden positions and set it back. As I said today in the Security Council, and as President Obama has said on many occasions, the United States strongly opposes continued Israeli settlement activity. So our objection was not on that point. On that point, we were united with the rest of the Council. The question for us was, would this resolution and its adoption advance that goal of achieving an independent Palestinian state, or cause one or both parties to dig in and make it even harder to resume the very necessary process of direct negotiations?
But what else are the Palestinians supposed to do? U.S. efforts on peacemaking have hit a brick wall. If the Palestinians can't rely on the United States, why isn't the United Nations the right place for them to go?
Because the United Nations can't create an independent state of Palestine. It won't happen. It has to be negotiated between the two parties. There are issues of borders and issues of Jerusalem and difficult issues that divide the two parties that can only be achieved through negotiations. We can have declaration after declaration, but at the end of the day, they don't create facts on the ground.
But why veto, though, a policy?
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Our aim is to achieve the goal of an independent Palestine as swiftly as possible. President Obama came to the United Nations last year and envisioned achieving that goal by September 2011. That can only happen if the parties go back to the negotiating table, stop using declaratory attempts to divert attention, and do the tough business of negotiating.
But you say that the United States wants to create an independent Palestinian state. There isn't even a peace process right now. There aren't even peace talks. The current talks have hit a wall because of the settlements. So why can't the United States come out and say that these settlements are illegal and demand a halt to them rather than partial temporary freezes? And then perhaps there might be a possibility of the two sides getting around the table and having an honest discussion with the United States as an honest broker.
Because the United States has, for 6 administrations, been very clear that we do not accept the legitimacy of continued settlement activity. There's no question about that. We have been clear and unequivocal. But the question is, if you simply try to make declaratory statements, will that lead to the halt of settlement activity? No. In fact, it might even encourage increased settlement activity. The goal is to achieve a viable, independent, contiguous, democratic Palestinian state.
But as a result of this veto, do you think that's what's going to happen, that there will be increased settlement activity now?
I think that there would, in fact, perhaps have been more settlement activity had the resolution been adopted.
But there is a big difference. I mean, you say that you use the word illegitimacy. There's a big difference between calling something illegitimate and calling something illegal. I mean, the illegality of the settlements has been recognized in previous resolutions. So why doesn't the Obama administration see eye to eye on this issue with the rest of the international community?
This is not the view of the Obama administration. This is the view of the United States. We do not and have not for 30 years accepted the legitimacy of Israeli settlement activity. But, and that remains our policy and our position. But, you know, we can spend time and time again debating this in the Security Council, or we can do things concretely that advance the process for peace. We sought to bring the Security Council together unanimously around a three-part approach which would have gotten us closer to the goal of an independent Palestinian state. The first part was an unprecedented statement by the Council, a very strong statement on settlements and other issues that could have been embraced by the entire Council and put us on record together on this issue for the first time in a very long time.
That was U.S. Ambassador Susan Rice talking to me earlier. Well, for more on the vote, I'm joined by AlJazeera's senior political analyst, Marwan Bashara, who joins us from New York. Marwan, just like to get your thoughts on some of the points that Ambassador Rice had to say to us in that interview with Al Jazeera. And also, what does this mean for the Palestinians? What do they do with this now?
You know, I got the sense that for the last few weeks, the Obama administration has fallen on the wrong side of history, whether on the question of Tunisia and Egypt, Bahrain, or today on the question of Palestine. So what does a superpower do when it falls on the wrong side of history? Apparently, it tries to rewrite the history. And that's what Ambassador Rice have done for the last 4 minutes. She has tried to rewrite the history by saying that we want a contiguous state, but we're not going to do anything about settlements that have proliferated, almost 200 of them, and almost 500,000 settlers on the occupied territories. She says that we recognize the illegitimacy, but we will not say anything about the illegality. And it's, by the way, a great question with no answer, because illegality means that also the United States, Israel's ally that supports it with more than $100 billion a year, is also a responsible party because of the continued Israeli violations of the international law in the occupied territories. So in the overall, the performance of the Obama administration has been poor, and it's quite unfortunate when everyone is expecting it, perhaps this time around, to do the right thing, the legal thing, and to surprise, it did the pragmatic thing. The problem here with the pragmatic thing, and that's where we get to the Palestinians, is that it's a question of cost and benefit. Now, it's not clear to me what the benefit is for the Obama administration, because President Obama is still the least liked president in the history of Israel. It's still incredibly disliked by the Israeli lobby in Washington. Certainly, he doesn't have any chance with any pro-Israeli groups here in the United States.
Perhaps there's
so
no
why
policy.
does he do that? I beg your pardon?
I'm just wondering, perhaps there's no policy.
Well, presumably the policy is the peace process, but exactly as you asked the ambassador, that the peace process has been blocked now for 2 years because of the question of the settlements. It has been failing, perhaps successfully, failing nonetheless, for the last 20 years. So the talk and the declaration has been more on the side of the U.S. rather than the international community. In the end of the day, we will see whether President Abbas will benefit by appearing to be, this time around, a bit more hardcore towards the United States. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, will hopefully, for his sake, appear to be also victorious, because the United States stood by him and hence basically blocked a UN resolution. And President Obama might gain some leverage with the Israelis.